Meeting to order. That's great. Please rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Miller, could you please call the roll?
Chairman DeMaria.
Here.
Vice Chairman Albrecht. Mr. Bushnell. Mrs. Kiefer. Here. Mrs. Purdy. Here. Mrs. Sebeski. Here. Mr. Williams.
Here. Judge McGorrick, are there additions and deletions?
There are none. I'm sorry, there are. It's the yes, we have an addition to the agenda with personnel under ratification of personnel appointments, resignations, transfer, and recommended terminations.
And those are on the consent agenda?
They would go on this consent agenda.
Thank you. Any announcements or spotlights tonight?
We also have, I'm sorry.
Did I miss something?
I'm sorry, it's this change. We also have additions and deletions to the agenda under the area of finance with budget transfers, and that would also be under consent agenda. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Are there any announcements or spotlights?
No, they're not.
I'd like to welcome Mr. Lovejoy to our meeting. City Council, thank you, sir, for being here. Committee reports. Mr. Williams, anything on academics?
No reports, thank you.
Ms. Sebeski, policy?
No report.
We are rolling. Mr. Albrecht, anything on educational support committee? No, good. Mr. Bushnell, anything on finance or personnel? No, good. Board member comments. Ms. Maddox, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. I would like to tell everybody about back to school night for Osborne and for Metz. Everyone should come and parents should meet all the teachers. It'll be great. Osborne is on the 16th and Metz is on the 18th, so make sure you're there.
Thank you. Ms.
you.
Torres?
I don't have anything, but I'll be there at back to school night helping the parents find their way around, so be sure to say hi to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kiefer?
I just wanted to make it simple and say welcome back to everybody. And just to follow up with what these ladies said, check the MCPS website for the back to school dates and times and be there.
Thank you. Ms. Purdy?
Yes, since I'm a newly minted stockholder in the great institution Virginia Tech, which lost last night, I do want to say thank you to Councilman Lovejoy for at least wearing your Virginia Tech t-shirt. Having said that, football makes me think of high school. High school makes me think Saturday learning seminars are getting started. As you know, I'm a big fan of that. They are adding quite a few more Saturday learning seminars. I think it has helped the students. So parents, if you have new students at the high school, or if you have students that are continuing, there are a lot of teachers who are incredibly dedicated, who do a lot to help your students on those Saturdays. So I highly encourage you to participate. Look for them on the schedule. I think the first one is coming up on September 19th. And with that, I will pass it to my colleague.
We are rolling. Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Thank you. I want to welcome everyone back to a new school year. Hope you're all excited to be back. Had a great Labor Day and ready to get going. And also to encourage everyone out there who's watching, the thousands of you watching on TV, please go to the back to school nights. This is the one opportunity every year where parents have a chance en masse to go visit the schools, the teachers, the administrators. A lot of hard work and efforts put into that, so I please encourage all of you to go back with your students and visit. And with that,
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sebeski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to welcome all of the students, parents, and staff to the 2015-16 school year. It's a very exciting time, and so much positive energy everywhere you go. So welcome, everybody. I do also encourage everyone to attend the back to school nights. They're a great time to find out what's going on at the schools, to get involved in your students' education, which does make a difference, and get out there and support all of our local middle school and high school sports teams as well. They really like to have people encouraging them on the sideline, so let's get out there and support the local team. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. They do. The kids love to have people in the stands. It does make a difference, believe it or not. So plenty of things going on, try and make it out to them. On your back-to-school nights, visit the division or school website and comment on the Let's Talk. There's some place to click on Let's Talk, and let's hear what is going on and what your opinions are on the back-to-school night. Football game Friday night coming up at Potomac, so it's not a very far trip down to Dumfries or Triangle, wherever they are. And Sunday, there'll be an NFL game, and the Dallas Cowboys will be playing. I am now a die-hard Dallas Cowboy fan.
Awesome.
As of Friday. And Lucky Whitehead, number 13, Osborne High School, will be returning the kickoffs and the punts, and he'll be the 5th wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Our kid had to go to junior college when he left here. He got his associate's degree in a year and a half, so he'd go to FAU. He went to a smaller Division I school and worked his tail off and was an undrafted free agent, and now he's playing in the NFL. And that's determination. And that's what Osborne kids are. And he's getting all of these accolades and everything else, and he deserves them. He's a great kid. He is a better human being than he is a football player. And he's getting all these highlights because he's playing in the NFL now. But don't forget the kids that don't have the talent to play the NFL, but are doing great things. We've got lots of them. And just look around and you can see them every day, everywhere we go in the streets of Manassas. Great kids doing great things. So congratulations to Lucky, and we appreciate all of the accolades he's getting, and all of our kids deserve that, all of the ones that work so very hard. Okay, citizens' comments. Do we have any? I don't have anybody signed up, I assume. Is there anybody that would like to speak? I'm going to read this, and then you can come on up, and if you could give your name and your where you live. At this time, we welcome citizens who wish to speak about services, policies, and affairs of the City of Manassas Public Schools. Because we have an agenda we need to complete, I'm working on this thing so I can see it all at once. We ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes. We appreciate the time you have taken to be here. Please, we treat citizens' comments as a public hearing, and we do not engage in conversation with speakers. The lack of an immediate response to your comments should not be taken as a lack of interest or concern. Please note that matters which are properly the subject of closed meetings, such as those related to the performance of school personnel or individual students' concerns may not be discussed during this time. Ma'am?
I apologize for not signing up. I didn't
That's
realize that was part of the
absolutely
protocol.
fine. There's no problem whatsoever.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Stacy Froen. I am a City of Manassas resident. My daughter Samantha Froen is a 2014 OHS graduate. She is home for the fall semester from her sophomore year at Old Dominion University. She decided that she would like to volunteer with the Osborne volleyball team since she loves the sport and has some extra time. When Sam contacted the coach prior to the season starting, he told her that he would love to have her help since he only had one assistant at the time and was planning to have a freshman, JV, as well as a varsity team. He even stated that he would like to place her in a paid position. When he submitted her name to the athletic director, he was told that she could not be a coach because she hadn't been out of high school for 2 years. My husband spoke with the AD as well as a school board member and was told that it is policy that anyone that has not been out of the school for at least 2 years could not volunteer. The reasons given were, 1, it's policy, and 2, it's for the safety of the kids. As a regular citizen of Manassas City, I have no idea what this policy stemmed from, but I would like for you to see how silly it sounds. First of all, Sam is a well-known and well-decorated athlete in the city schools and has gone on to play Division I soccer in college. So in short, she knows what she's talking about when it comes to sports. So when she wanted to volunteer with the schools with the sport she loves and felt confident she could help teach the girls, it made perfect sense to us and obviously to the coach. Second, it is completely unclear what the safety of the kids has anything to do with her age. I realize that the arrest of a 23-year-old volunteer on child pornography charges earlier this year is humiliating for the school system. We were told that based on the arrest, the schools aren't going to allow anyone under the age of 23 to volunteer. There was an arrest made in 2010, my son's senior year of high school, of an Osborne High School English teacher who had molested several boys. He was 52 at the time, so following along that same logic, it's safe to assume that no teachers will be hired under the age of 52. I have gone through all of the policies listed on the Manassas City Schools website, and I have found age listed in only 3 documents. One is the school bus driver's document that states that the applicants must have reached the age of 18 on the first day of the school year. The second document is the part-time and substitute professional staff employment that states that substitute teachers shall be 18 years, or at least 18 years old, with preference given to persons 21 years and older. The third is non-discrimination that states, the school board of the city of Manassas is committed to non-discrimination with regard to sex, gender, race, color, national origin, disability, religion, ancestry, age, marital status, genetic information, or any other characteristic protected by law. This commitment will prevail in all of its policies and practices concerning staff, student, educational programs and services, and individuals and entities with whom the board does business. If the school board has officially decided to discriminate against age, it should be clearly written into the policies for the public to see. Perverts come in all ages, races, and genders. Feel free to discriminate against perverts, but don't assume that you're protecting the kids based on age, on the ages of those that are trying to be involved with the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll go on to consent agenda. Can you find your motion?
I don't know. Mr. Chair, I move that the school board of the city of Manassas approve the consent agenda as modified.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Sebeski, after touching my screen and messing it up. Second by Mr. Williams. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Discussion agenda. Student achievement and accountability. Dr. McGort?
So beginning this year, we're changing the format slightly of how we report our data. Tonight, Mr. Lyon is going to provide the division data and balanced scorecard, which will also be presented by the owners of the portions of the scorecard. Then we will begin with principals presenting their data so that they can talk about the school improvement that they have in place, that they're putting in place for next year, as well as the work that they've done with their staffs over the summer. So tonight, following Mr. Lyon, we will have Ms. Mills from Mayfield and Ms. Buckheit from Metz Middle School. Mr. Lyon.
Thank you, Dr. McGort. This evening, I'm here to present the annual report of the SOL results and other performance data results from the school year 2014-2015. As every year I've stood here and presented this data, this is the most excited I've been to present some very good data, the best we've had since we've been here. From a division level, we present the student performance data by subject area. As you notice at the table, you'll see reading, writing, and science have results in all but one of the columns. And math and science have results in all of the columns. The reason for that is for math and science in the year 2011 2012, math and history, those standards that are in place today were in place then. The new math standards were implemented that year. so we can look at the span of these new standards and how the students have performed over the past 4 years on those new standards. And the history standards have been the same since then, though the new standards are coming out this year. So looking at reading and writing, you'll see that the growth has been consistent over the past 3 years. One thing you'll notice is the last column to the right is the rate of improvement from 2012 to 2015. The way I calculate that is the actual difference between 2014, 2015, from the 2013, or 2012-13 year. And I divide that difference by the baseline of the 2012-2013 year. So when you look at from 2012 to 2015, we had a pass rate of 72% in our English reading. But back in 2012-2013, when the new standards were implemented, our pass rate was 63%. That's a difference of 16 points. But the rate of growth, the rate of improvement, that improved by 14%. That's a rate of improvement of 14%, and that is significant. That is, though our achievement is still not where we want it to be, that is a huge step forward over the last 3 years of growth. The same with the writing. Writing almost repeats reading. It's almost identical. And I'm going to jump down to science real quick. Now, the science is flat. We need to look at that. Our content specialists and those team of teachers are using the program evaluation, digging into that item data to find where exactly we need to improve that instruction. Looking at math and history, history has had steady growth over the past 4 years. It's improved at a rate of 8% since 2011-2012. And math, well, what can I say about math? Has a rate of improvement of 32%. Back in the 2011-2012, our pass rate was 59%. Today, we sit at 78. We still have room to go, but that improvement, that jump in 4 years is remarkable. I'm just tickled about that. Moving forward, looking at this from a visual representation, helps everyone see really what I'm talking about. When I talk about rate of improvement, you can really see it in the visual representation. When you look at the slope over the last 4 years of math, this is where we were back in 2011-2012. This is where we are right now. It's an incredible jump in 4 years. And as you can see on all the subject areas, with the exception of science, they're all sloping positive. They're all going toward the direction we need them to go. We're making progress. If we take a look at this by subgroups, what you'll see here, this is reading, so I only have 3 years of reading scores. The green means it improved from the previous year. Some interesting tidbits here is to look at...
Dave, excuse me for 1 second.
Yeah.
Can you turn those mics up a little bit?
Sure.
I've got some information that we might not be getting this at home.
Oh, okay.
So just,
Should I lean forward
and there
a
are
little bit?
people actually watching.
Wow.
Not that you're on TV, don't get nervous now.
All right, so let me back up. This is division level by subgroups for reading. And you'll see the results are for the past 3 years, which is when the new standards were implemented. The green means that it improved from the previous year. Now, if you look at 2014, 2015, you'll see some numbers that are bold, italicized, and have a little asterisk next to them. That indicates that we beat the state average in those subgroups. Now, like I said before, from an achievement standpoint, we still have a lot of work to do. But from a growth standpoint, we have accomplished quite a bit in 3 years, and we're going to continue that trend. But if we look at all the subgroups, you'll see Gap Group 2, we had a pass rate at 68%. The state average was 65. And over the last 3 years, that was a growth. We improved at a rate of 21%. And you just go down the line here. The next one, students with disabilities. Now, 46% pass rate is nothing. We're not satisfied with that, obviously. We need to get a lot more than that. But from the state, look across the state, we're above the state average. And we've grown 18%. And talking to Dr. Stone today, she's actually getting calls from across the state asking her, what did she do? How did you get your subgroup so much better than the rest of us across the state? So this is a statewide struggle. But they're calling us and asking us, what are we doing? And as you can see, in the right subgroup, 88%, again 11% rate of improvement. And just go down the rate of improvement column there. Economically disadvantaged. Back in 2012-2013, our pass rate was 53%. Now it was 63%. A lot of work still left to do. but the rate of improvement, 19%.
You're doing fine. Keep going.
And take a look at this from a visual representation. Once again, you see, the slope of improvement is great. All the subgroups are trending upward. We put a lot of things in place. The students are working very hard and really getting it done, and we're closing those gaps. Now, from a math standpoint, this is exciting. 7 out of the 9 subgroups, we exceeded the state average. And 1 out of the 9 subgroups, we matched the state average. Then looking at rate of improvements, 6 out of the 9 subgroups had rate of improvements greater than 30% over the past 4 years. 2 of the 9 had greater than 25%, and 1 of the 9 had a rate of improvement of 10%, or of greater than 10%, or not 10%. The things we're doing, the students are responding to it, and they're doing much better than they have been. We have our instructional framework in place. The teachers and the content specialists are doing curriculum work, not just during the summer, where it's a year-round task. They're examining all the data throughout the year in the summer and revising and revising and tweaking our learning maps and unit maps and lesson plans to make sure they're aligned to the language of the standard. And that's made a big difference. Making sure that we're addressing instruction and the delivery instruction to make sure that we're teaching what's being measured at the level that the state wants it to be. And the hats off to all that work. Plus the teachers in the classrooms using the instructional framework effectively and taking that in and embracing it, even though it was a challenge. They took it and ran with it. And we're seeing the fruits of that labor. Looking at a visual representation, this is my favorite graph out of the whole night, just looking at the rate of growth with math. Once again, we look at this from 2 perspectives, achievement and growth. Achievement, we all want to be in the 90s. We're going to get there. We're not there yet. But the rate of growth is respectable and is significant. This is something different. We haven't done this in the past. We wanted to show the data by cohort graduating class. And I think it tells the deeper layer of this story. How is that graduating class doing over the years? Instead of comparing one class to a different class, we're looking at the pure levels here. The graduating class of 2019, which they were our 8th graders last year. And this is for reading. Comparing their performance from last year to 2012-2013, over the past 3 years, they improved at a rate of 16%. That's good. We need to continue that and expand that. Class of 2020, same thing. They improved at a rate of 23%. And they were our 7th graders last year. Our class of 2021, our last 6th graders last year, they improved at a rate of 17%. The class of 2022 improved at a rate of 7%. The class of 2023 improved at a rate of 9%. Everything, the growth is there. We're closing this gap. Now, and I mentioned the instructional framework. Something else I want to mention too is our RTI framework, our interventions. The board's commitment to providing interventionists at the levels that we have them has made a huge effect. We're closing those achievement gaps because of all of that, and the interventionists working with students who need a smaller group instruction environment and more targeted approach. All of these efforts are yielding results. Looking at math from the same model, 2019, last year's 8th graders. Now, math has a different twist. When the students leave Mayfield and they come to METS for their 7th grade year, our math cohort actually changes. It splits. We now have a new grade 7 math cohort because several students go into the algebra cohort. And so we can't really compare grade 6 pass rate to a grade 7 math pass rate because it's a different group of kids. So that's why we split out almost like a triangle here, and you'll see that. But looking backwards real quick, 2019, from grade 5 to grade 6, that cohort improved at a rate of 19%. Then, when the cohort changed, and we have a new cohort at grade 7 back in 13-14, that group of kids, when they took the grade 8 math test, they improved at a rate of 20% over the previous year. Now, once again, that's the instructional framework, and that's RTI, that's the teachers doing that curriculum work and implementing our instructional framework to lesson plans in the classroom, and improving assessments and how we do assessments. I get excited. The Tim DeMare in me comes out, I can't help it.
Calm down. You don't want that to happen. It's not pretty.
Now, in algebra and geometry, there's two different subjects, but that cohort are basically the same students. Moving on to class of 2020, they were our 7th graders last year, so they started the new cohort that I would report on next year at 8th grade. And looking at them, their 3-year rate of improvement from grade 4 to grade 6 was at a rate of 25%. And then grade 7, that's our baseline for next year, when we compare our grade 8 math scores to that. And then our algebra pass rate. Class of 2021, these were our 6th graders last year. They improved, this is exciting. If you look back at grade 3, when the new math standards came out, we had a 58% pass rate. Now, the 6th grade class last year, 85%. Now, if I just subtract the raw points from that, that's what, 27 points? That's great, jumped up 27 points. But in honesty, that's a 47% improvement over that 4-year base. That is significant and impressive. Class of 2022, last year's 5th graders, once again, an impressive rate of growth. They went from a 61 to a 77. That is a 26% improvement over that 3 years. Now, class of 2023, last year's 4th graders, they went from a 58 to an 84. You don't see that. That's a 45% improvement over the previous year. Our math is our strength right now. And I know next year reading will be right with it. Our accreditation statuses with our schools. Right now, all the elementaries are fully accredited. Mayfield and Metz will continue to be accredited with Warren in English. I anticipate that will go away next year. And Osborne is fully accredited at this point. That concludes the data side. Before I move into the balanced scorecard, do you have any questions?
Are there any questions or comments? I got one. This is wonderful, but we can't rest on our laurels. Got to keep right on rolling, and everything's got to continue, because unless you're moving forward, you're moving backwards.
Exactly.
So this is great. So
and like we said, the achievement, I mean, we look at this, we look at it two different ways, achievement and growth. Achievement, we're not satisfied, obviously. But from a growth perspective, we're excited. We know we've got momentum,
we should be.
And we're going to get to our achievement goals. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
You decided to change your mind.
I just want to quickly say thank you to all of the Manassas City School staff for really believing in our kids, and I know it's been a lot of hard work over the last couple of years, and I know there will continue to be a lot of hard work, but it must be very rewarding to see these kinds of results, and I can only imagine what it's like if you're in the classroom seeing these results even more so. But thank you again. Like I said, I know that you don't always hear that, but we really do appreciate it. The parents, the students, everyone does appreciate all the hard work that goes into making this all happen every day. And like you said, even in the summertime, I know all of the work is being done to make this happen. So thank you very much.
Okay. Then we'll move into our balanced scorecard. If I make this bigger. Now, the first set of data here, I've basically gone over that already, so I'm not going to repeat that. We'll move right to our pass advance rates. You know, our pass advance rates are continuing to improve too. Though we didn't meet the targets that we had set for ourselves this year, we came very close. In the reading, we went from a 12% advanced pass rate last year to a 14% this year. Our goal was 15, so we missed it by a point. Writing, last year we had 13%, this year at a 10% advanced pass rate. We went backwards, we slid a little backwards on that one, and we're working on that. Math, we went from a 15% to a 16% pass advance rate. We set a target for ourselves of 18. We came in underneath it. In science, last year was 11, this year is 9. We have some work to do in science, and I think I highlighted that in the earlier slides. In history, our pass advance rate was 22%, and this year is 18%. It did dip a little bit. The way we set our targets here, we take a look at, we kind of use a rule of 3. If our performance was within 3 points, then we bump up our target by 3 points based on that pass rate. If we exceeded our target, we add 3 points to that performance to set the next target for the next year. Moving on down to average daily attendance. There we go. Our average daily attendance for students was 94.08%. Last year was 95, so we dipped a little bit there. We came in under our target. Our on-time graduation actually improved slightly by 0.7 of a point. The last time I checked, this is kind of a moving target. The state is still finalizing the summer data, but last I checked, it was 86.8. Graduation completer index, we slid back a little bit to 86. That still does meet the requirement for accreditation. The accreditation requirement is 85. Dropout rate stayed the same at 4.8%. We didn't quite meet our target of 4%. Our AP, the percentage of students taking AP test scoring 3+ did increase slightly from a 41 to a 42%, or 41.5 to a 42.5%. Our ACT scores, we had a little dip here in our ACT scores this year, from, as you can see across the board there. We're still higher than the national average, but we're below the state average. We take the state average and we use that as our target. So that's how we set our targets on the state average. SAT scores is just the opposite a little bit when we set our targets. Our SAT scores dipped a little bit here, and our targets for the SATs are based on the national average. Teacher retention rate was at a 85.6% this year. We came in under our target. Sometimes that's just the way it is. Percentage of students of postgraduate. Percentage of teachers with postgraduate degrees is 61%. Dipped a little bit there. And our teacher absentee rate went from 4.3 to a 5.9, and we are working on that. We have been addressing that. The next focus area is communications, and I'm going to have Ms. Al Rafford come up and speak to you about her measures. I do want to speak about the last 3 here, because these 3 measures I actually take care of for communications. The student extracurricular participation rate, you'll notice a drop here, but we did something different this year. We broke out fine arts separate from that, so we did a little different calculation this year with that. Total parent-teacher conferences, I wish that thing would stop. Get out of there. There we go. The hard count was 33,649. Our goal is 7,000, and we're working on improving that this year. I'll speak to the rest of those.
1 second, Dave.
Oh, go ahead.
Before you leave, just in case anybody has any questions, I know you're not walking out of the building, but does anybody have any questions on what David's presented here on the balanced scorecard? Ms. Purdy?
Yes, I do. So we started the balanced scorecard, I think over 2 years ago, right? It was the first time you guys sent it?
Right.
And back then, when we first approved the balanced scorecard, if memory serves me, we had set goals for all 5 years, and I think you were approaching 85% passage rate by the time you hit the 5th year. But now you've got TBDs,
right, so
and it looks like you've changed the schema for how you're setting your goals. So you're now doing it on kind of a rolling wave basis. You're going to set the target based on the prior year performance. Did I understand that correctly?
For the SOLs?
Yeah, the passage rates were
Right.
at 85%, because they're showing TBDs.
Right, that is correct. But our goal at 18-19 is still 85%. What we thought, as we looked at this, is if we set those out ahead now, it almost appears as if we're trying to limit our growth each year. Our goal still is 85% in the final year. That's still our goal. However, when we were putting in our targets, when we started to put the actual numbers in, it just gave the visual representation of we're trying to limit our growth by setting this target. So the final target still is 85%. That has not changed.
Makes sense.
I also believe that target, that's not something that was board-driven or board-approved even. That was just information we were given at the time. Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
Okay. Mr. Williams?
First, balanced scorecard. It's great that we have this aspirational roadmap because you don't have a goal or numbers in mind, and it will get you there. So it's great that we have these numbers for teachers and administrators to shoot for. Backing up to the data you presented earlier, that's awesome news. As you stated before, and as Mr. DeMaria mentioned, we still have a ways to go, but we talk so much about achievement, and we focus so much on tests, and we harp on tests when scores are bad. When scores are good and improvement is shown, we need to celebrate that, not only to celebrate the achievement, but to encourage the administrators, the teachers, the kids, the staff, everyone involved in the children's education, and we're on the right path. So great job by you, great job by the kids, and I hope that everyone's encouraged and maintains their enthusiasm for this, so that's great news. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Anyone else? Okay.
All right.
You can turn it over to
I will
Mr.
ask
Radford.
Mr. Radford to come up and speak to the rest of the communication items there.
Good evening, board members. I get to speak to you tonight in a different capacity to talk about our communications balanced scorecard. I am indirectly connected to the achievement side in communications because I'm looking at what we're communicating and how we're doing that regarding achievement. And I really feel like this portion of the balanced scorecard also deals more with engagement and participation. I'm very thankful that we have metrics in place now that we can really kind of gauge our effectiveness in a lot of different areas. So if you look here at the top, our baseline year for our external surveys and our website visits, we just released this new Blackboard website in 2014. And so using Google Metrics and other ways to measure the type of hits that we're getting on the site, you can see that we have about a little more than 5,300 from last year, and so we're looking to increase that definitely by including engaging information on the site that would draw people there. Our Twitter followers and Facebook followers, our social media, more than doubled from what our target was, and it continues to grow every day. I was just looking as I was coming here tonight that we had 10 more Twitter followers and things, so certainly it peaks during particular times. Snow days are very popular and things like that, and as people are sharing, I'm noticing that a lot more. Every day that when we post different stories, I can see how many times people are sharing it out with others. And so that definitely has increased even the current school year. The percentage of overall parental satisfaction with communication from the school division, that's a biggie for us. And Mr. DeMaria talked about it a little bit with our new Let's Talk feature that is on the website. Currently, we have it out as we've been advertising about back to school nights. We had ours at Baldwin just before school started, and we have some others coming up as the young ladies talked about tonight. And that was one of the ways that we wanted to try to get some feedback about the effectiveness of back to school nights, what our parents are feeling like when they go, if it's something that's beneficial to them. Being able to review that type of data by school is going to be very helpful for us in our planning for next year. We're also expanding that feature into departments so that if people want to provide feedback for transportation, communication, the achievement office, whatever it may be, that they will be invited to be able to do that. We can also host surveys through that rather than the instrument that we have been using. And I think the analytics that come along with this particular service are more beneficial to us as far as how we can do more planning. Another area of engagement that is of great interest to me is our number of business and community partnerships. Certainly in the Achievement Office, we've expanded that through our CTE efforts and things like that. But in talking to the schools, you can see that in last year we had 66 businesses or community partnerships that were reported to my office, and we had set a goal of 50. So I think it's really great that our schools are reaching out to our business community and recognizing that it really does take a village to raise children and to help them be successful, that we cannot be an island, and so that's something that I'm hoping is going to increase even the more this school year. And as Mr. Lyon already hit on, the other engagement opportunities for extracurricular, just getting the word out about involvement. I'm talking to my peers in other school divisions, and they're having some of the same challenges with increasing their numbers for participation in certain areas. And so we want to do our part to try to get the word out and to see if we can make some improvements in that area as well. Does anybody have any questions about the balanced scorecard for communication?
Anyone?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. The measures for finance, two of them will be their first year, we'll be starting it in FY 15-16. Our primary function is to be support to our teachers, our staff, and so we want to find out what kind of job are we doing. Are we doing a good job or not, or what areas that we need to have improvement on? So we're going to prepare this year an annual satisfaction survey. It'll probably include our benefits that are being offered to our teachers through our HR department. We'll probably include that in there as well. We also, this year, for the first time, we're going to be establishing a fraud, waste, and abuse hotline, and we will be investigating each one of those concerns and reporting back to the superintendent regarding each one of those areas. And of course, we always have an objective to have or target to have an unqualified audit opinion, and we expect that we will have that this year as we had in past years. And we will be concentrating on the management comments to make sure that errors that are being identified do not reoccur from year to year. So that's what it is for finance. Any questions or concerns?
Anyone? Thank you.
Okay, for support services and maintaining a health and safety environment for community staff and parents, Mr. Houghton's first going to talk about our consumption levels. Mr. Houghton.
Thank you, sir. Focus Area 4, Goal 1, are aspects of our maintenance plan. Two areas that we're looking to identify on the balanced scorecard will be reducing energy consumption. That would be the electricity, the natural gas, and water. And then reducing the amount of reactive work that our maintenance department does. So it's the operational side. We did not meet our target for electrical consumption or water consumption. One factor that contributed to that was the additional square footage at the Johnson Wing at Osborne High School. We met our target on natural gas for the division, and we exceeded our target on reducing reactive work. So from an operational side, we're actually doing what we need to do. We are very optimistic that next year we're going to exceed expectations on all of our utilities by the addition of the energy management specialist into the department. Focus Area 4, Goal 2 is the capital improvement plan. Those are projects, and if we can, and as you can see, there were a total of 16 projects. We started all of the projects, 7 have been completed. Mr. Rapp is going to speak to Focus Area 4, Goal 3.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. As a reminder, we conduct quarterly inspections of our buildings. Mrs. Thompson normally does that after school hours, so we can get into every nook and cranny, both inside and out the building. So that's where that 32 number comes in, 8 schools, 4 times a year. The previous year, you can see we had a baseline, and we were able to correct those 78% of the time as soon as we see those and get those fixed. This year, quite honestly, Mrs. Thompson wowed me when she sat down, and 96% of those were fixed immediately. One thing that's probably important for the board to probably be reminded of is when she does her inspections, she immediately sits down with Matt Barton from the maintenance department, so they immediately rectify and determine how they're going to fix those deficiencies. So we're looking at increasing that 1% the following year. There's always a few you can't fix immediately, but we're all the way up to 96%. We're really, really proud of those efforts after 2 years. Staff at the schools know we're coming. They know it's real. They know it's not going away, and it's for the safety and for everybody that walks in the building. Questions for us?
Anyone? Yeah, 96% is pretty impressive. Good luck on 97 next year.
Work on it.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good evening, Board. I'm here to report on the information technology and instructional technology balanced scorecard goals. Instructional technology, which is now a part of curriculum instruction, I'm happy to report on. The first two targets, the support satisfaction survey and the utilization and assessment survey, have not yet been launched. They will be launched this year as part of our division technology plan. We have been collecting feedback informally on those throughout this year as well. The percentage of teachers participating in professional development for blended learning this past year was our baseline year. We hit 5%. You can see it's a dramatic increase to 70% this upcoming year, and that is representative of all the professional development that's going to be related, anything to do with technology, blended learning, ITTS certification, NETS-T certification, those types of things. And equity in our classrooms for instructional technology, our target was to hit a 2-to-1 student-to-computer ratio. We achieved that last fall through our computer refresh program. That was to set our base. The target, once again, is to maintain that ratio as the student population increases, getting rid of all computers older than 7 years. And then you can see progressively we're trying to hit the 1-to-1 through the high school by next year, and then we'll start pushing that down into the lower grades. Our network uptime, we did not hit our 5 nines. We were 99.78%. 5 nines, if you don't know, it's about 5.26 minutes a year of downtime, so it's pretty close. 9978 is not bad, but as we work to increase our network infrastructure, our battery replacement cycle for our UPSs and those types of things, that number hopefully will continue to increase. And then the percentage of technology requests responded to within 2 business days. Our target is obviously 100%. We launched this year in February a division-wide IT ticket system that was previously not throughout the division. So we're trying to get participation from our staff, and that's been growing every month. And so we hit 80% being responded to within 2 days. Questions?
Questions? I've got one.
Yep.
In 16-17, we're talking 1-to-1 computer at Osborne, obviously with the tablets, correct?
Correct.
Do the tablets count in our 2-to-1 overall K-12 then?
No.
Okay.
No, they do not.
That's very impressive then.
On top
Thank
of
you.
that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
That concludes the balanced
I
scorecard
hope so, because it ain't going up anymore. Any other questions now that they're done? All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Lane.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're going to stay there, aren't you? Are you?
Moderator.
Oh, no, okay.
Good evening, Ms. Mills.
Student Achievement and Accountability, Mayfield.
All right. Good evening, Chairman DeMaria, members of the board, and Dr. McGork. I am so pleased to be the person standing before you tonight to represent Mayfield Intermediate School. You're going to see me twice tonight, so I hope you're pleased as well to see me up here.
Very excited.
I'm going to start with our achievement data, and then I'll come back to talk with you more about our school improvement plan. And with that, I'm going to keep rolling, and don't worry, Chairman DeMaria, I'm always rolling forward.
That'll go.
All right, so Mayfield Intermediate School, we're going to look at the achievement data from 2014-2015, and we'll start with the pass rates by subject. Sorry, apparently I have to click it. There we go. All right, so as Mr. Lyon explained, we're going to look at the data over the last 3 years with the exception of mathematics, and we're going to look at that since 2011 in the introduction of the new standards. You can see that in the rate of improvement, we also have some things to be really pleased about when we're looking at improvement at Mayfield. In reading, you can see a 19% rate of improvement. Math, a 4%. Based on the last 4 years, and in science, we're looking at a 3%. And this is a combined total between grades 5 and 6, so this represents all students in the school. You can see in science there was a little bit of a dip in 13-14 and then a recovery back up in 14-15. Okay, so then we're going to break it down. We're going to follow the same pattern that Mr. Lyon did at the division level. So we're going to break it down to our pass rates by subgroup, and we're going to start with reading over the last 3 years. So that top number there under all students, that represents the 19% that we just looked at on the previous slide, because that's the combination of all students in the school. And then you can look down across the board, we're seeing double to triple digit increases in all subgroup areas, with the largest being under students with disabilities, where Mayfield saw a 100% increase, a rate of improvement in the pass scores in students with disabilities in reading, which is a major success. We also took a look at our gap groups, gap group 1, 2, and 3, all with rates of improvement in the 20s. And then everything else came up with a rate of improvement between 12% and 16%. Okay, we'll then look at the same breakdown, but for our math. So we're looking again across 4 years for our math, and you can see that we're still looking at rate of improvement across almost all of the subgroups. Not quite as high as in the previous slide with reading, but if you also notice in the numbers, we're looking at a little bit higher percentages of pass rates in our numbers. So you can see there, though, the same trend as we saw in reading. Our students with disabilities, again, a 35% rate of improvement, and our gap group 2, a 10% rate of improvement. And that 4% at the top is the same, the combined score for all students. And we're taking a look at our areas of Lebanon English proficient and white students, where we did see a slight decrease in the rate of improvement. Okay, so now we're going to break it down to pass rates by the specific SOL test. So what we looked at before was all students lumped together from grades 5 and grade 6. So if we want to break that down and look at how did each grade level perform, we'll look at the rate of improvement for each individual test. So in reading, we saw a rate of improvement of 19%. And if you break that down, you'll see that it was a 20% rate of improvement in grade 5, and then a 17% rate of improvement in grade 6. And those came together with some decimals and made 19% rate of improvement overall. You can see in grade 5 math, 7% rate of improvement, and even though grade 6 math did show a 1% decrease in the rate of improvement, the bolded number there, the 84, does represent where we exceeded the state average for students in math performance. And then in grade 5 science, there's only one number there, so you're going to see the 3% rate of improvement from the first slide, because they only take that in 5th grade, so it's only one grade level. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at our balanced scorecard. Tech support. Okay, so the balanced scorecard is set up in the same way that the division balanced scorecard was set up. So the SOL pass rates at the top, those are the numbers that we just went over, the 70%, 81%, and 73% at the top. So we're going to look a little bit closer at our pass advanced rates, and there is a trend upward across the division, which is great. What we're seeing for Mayfield in the pass advanced rate was the 15% in reading, a 24% in math, and a 15% in science. And we'll talk about in our school improvement plan a little bit later and how that is an area of focus for us next year at Mayfield. So you can see that we've set our targets, again, on the rule of threes that Mr. Lyon explained. So we have our targets there for next year. Down underneath, still under focus area 1 of student achievement, we have our goal for our percentage of students, or our number of students, participating in career awareness events. And there we have set our goal for next year at 100%, because all students should participate in career awareness events. I think we can all agree on that one. Instructional staff attendance rate. We're looking at our baseline data, where you see baseline is the first year that we were tracking the data at a 92%, and set our goal next year at a 97%. And our teacher retention rate for the previous year at a 74%. And we'll be looking at an 85% is our goal for next year, increase of 10%. Okay, when we move to focus area 2 for communications, this is where we are looking at our numbers of parents attending our events and attending our PTA meetings. We're looking to double the amount of parents that are attending our PTA meetings. So we had 15 that attended average last year, and we're looking to double that number this year. We're also looking to increase our number of parents that are participating in school-wide events, and we're looking to go up from 136 to at least 200 for the coming school year. Parent-teacher conference participation rate, we are looking to get that to bringing in about half of our families across the school in for parent-teacher conferences, so up from a 16% that we're hoping to move to a 50%. The parents who feel informed about the school, that'll be a baseline for us this year as we're implementing the measures that Ms. Radford just discussed. Extracurricular participation rate. We had a pretty decent 40% extracurricular participation rate last year, and we're looking to increase that by about 5% this year. And same with our fine arts, 56% participation rate last year in fine arts, and we're looking to increase that to 60%. We're also taking a look at our number of school business partnerships. We have lots of opportunities to increase our school business partnerships this year, so we're looking to make an increase of about 2 in the coming year. We tracked approximately 5 partnerships this year at Mayfield alone. And down below in focus area number 5 in technology, we're looking at the percentage of teachers participating in professional development for blended learning. And you'll see that our baseline data was 2% of teachers last year, and we're looking at a target of 70% for teachers next year. And that will be by increasing the availability of blended learning for our teachers. Okay, so those were the numbers, and what do the numbers tell us? So we're looking at our findings here, and we broke our findings down into some celebration and then some areas for improvement. In our celebration, certainly we celebrate that our 6th grade math average exceeded the state average. We also celebrate our students with disabilities and their test performance increasing from 24 to 48% in reading and from the 40 to 54 in math. And we're also celebrating our all students reading performance increasing by 19%. Our areas for improvement. Even though we had an increase in our reading scores, Mayfield is still accredited with warning for the coming school year. Underneath that, we started talking a little bit more about where are areas for our students in our classroom, because we talked a lot about numbers, but when we're talking about areas of improvement, it's hard to talk about numbers. What do those numbers mean? So underneath that, we talked about our areas for improvement and what we do with our kids every single day. And what you'll see across these 3 bullet points is a little bit of repetition because it revolves around the same themes. We're going to look at differentiation in targeted small group instruction for all students to be learning at their level. We're going to be talking a lot about cross-curricular connections and how to incorporate more writing in the content areas. We're going to talk about higher order thinking and how to challenge our kids with rigorous instruction on a daily basis that pushes them to think on a higher level in all content areas. And we're also going to build in some opportunity for both intervention and acceleration for all students so that we are catching our students as they're falling throughout the year, but we're also accelerating our students that are meeting the benchmarks throughout the year and providing them with more rigorous opportunity for acceleration. So that brings us to our goals for this school year, and I'll expand a little more on our goals in a moment when I come back up with the school improvement plan. These goals I'm presenting right now are goals for the coming school year. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we're looking at 4 goals. We started with 3 goals, and we chose to add a 4th goal to our plan. So we're going to have 2 goals in reading, 1 goal in science, and 1 goal in math. Our first goal is the reading SOL pass rate that we want to increase to 77%. Our second goal is in Gap Group 1, specifically in reading, those targeted students with an increase of 10% for 1 school year. Goal 3 is in our science SOL pass rate that we would like to improve to at least 80%. And goal 4 is in our math pass advanced rate. And that's when we started looking at our math numbers and saying they're pretty strong and our increases are showing each year, but now we want to push our kids to go to a higher level. So we're looking at a goal of a pass advanced rate in math of at least 28%. And you'll see that in most of the goals we do say at least, because we certainly would be much happier to go higher than that. Okay, so that concludes my presentation for you on Mayfield Intermediate School achievement data.
Thank you. Is there any questions, comments? Thank you very much. It looks impressive.
Thank you. See you soon.
And now we'll move on to Metz Middle School.
Good evening, Ms. Buckeye.
Good evening. Good evening, thank you. I want to first thank you for the opportunity to work with Manassas City Public Schools. The last week with students has been amazing, and 2 weeks with staff and students has been even more amazing. So this is my one time up here, so I'm going to use this opportunity to share a little bit of data as well as our school improvement goals and a little bit of some of the things that are going to be happening at Metz Middle School to really drive us forward this year. So that being said, really our data reflects a lot of what Mr. Lyons already has shown you. Pretty steady increases across in terms of the percentage of improvement. I really do look at those numbers in that 14-15 line. So, you know, history 82 looks solid to me, but definitely the reading 70. I always see it from the other side. That's 30% of the kids that aren't where they need to be. It's just the way my mind goes. So what is very promising as I come to Metz Middle School is I love to see that growth trend though. So when I'm really looking at what's happening, I'm looking at people really being persistent and committed to getting the job done. And we just need to focus our efforts in some other areas perhaps to really get us to the benchmark that I want to be at the end of this year. And again, this is the reading gap groups. To note, again, some really significant growth areas there. The area that we're really focusing on, Ms. Moore with the limited English proficient have really done a lot of work collaborating with central office to help us do some things to make that number move significantly as we look into this next year. So again, same trends that Mr. Lyons was showing us previously and Mayfield also shows. This is our math. So probably of one of the celebrations that you see I have in there, there's a number of areas to celebrate. Several of those gap groups. So the economically disadvantaged in particular, 53% increase, which is huge, from 43% of the kids to 66% of the kids meeting that math standard of that group. And I always think it's interesting because embedded in these different gap groups, you actually see the same kid kind of several times, you know what I mean, when you're looking at them. And so this is our breakdown by grade. I find very promising so I like to look at cohort groups. I love that table that Mr. Lyons have of that cohort group. So I'm really looking at my 7th grade, right, that has made giant leaps in both reading and math. So when I get to my balanced scorecard, my number's not quite so scary when I look at that trend that's happening there. So again, the math trend is spot on at Metz Middle School. One of the things I've done coming to Metz, I made a commitment to myself to actually meet every staff person. Everybody has had really a 30-minute sit-down with me starting July 1. I'm glad I did it. It has been an amazing way to get to know them. But talking to all of the math people, they really attribute their success this past year in particular to the collaboration. So the time that they're having to collaboratively plan during the school day, several times a week, really, they say, is what helped them get that pretty amazing number, those two numbers there, 72 and 74%. And my scorecard. I'll let you go to it. So the scorecard might look frightening to some. I'm into gaudy goals. I have found success in using what is termed a gaudy goal. I kind of feel, so I've been very transparent. My staff have seen our school improvement goals. I've put this 85% out across the board to all of them, and they've really attacked it with grit, I would really kind of say. So there was a little bit of hesitation, but they have buckled down and are really strategizing, and this was really last week, so that's what, to me, was an amazing reassurance that I'm in the right place with them, and I really feel confident they're going to get it done, again, when I look at those cohort trends. So I have established an 85% target for all of our subject areas as we look. And I know that means some really big growth, and each of those departments have done the numbers, and they know how far they need to go, but we're looking at individual faces of kids, and I don't want them going on to high school without being ready to meet the demands there. So number of students participating in career awareness events, again, Kara and I have kind of talked, and we agree that should be 100%. So part of what's happening this year at METS is actually students are doing a career and college prep class as part of their wheel. So it's really a way that we're assuring that every student is having the opportunity to engage in the Naviance program in grade 8 to begin to map out their pathway for high school and then beyond high school. Instructional staff attendance rate, looking at some of the numbers as I pulled some data, I had some concerns with staff attendance. So that is actually a specific goal that we have put out within our plan, but 97% is the target for everybody, and I've been transparent with staff about that as well. We've done some adjustments in terms of how staff take a day off. They call me early in the morning. It's a little less convenient for me and for them, but hopefully it will help us easily hit that benchmark. And teacher retention rate, we're really looking at 95%. And again, after meeting with folks, I'm really, really feeling happy with the staff that I have at METS Middle School right now. Parent attending PTA meetings, I really don't have much of a number. There's roughly 4 or 5 moms in particular that are pretty frequent attenders of those meetings, but definitely something that we need to look at. I think the parent participation, that second area there in school-wide events, we're looking at doing a couple things, and actually Dr. McGork has been very helpful, and Russ, in helping us to create a parent center. So by the end of this month, we will be using the apartment space. I don't know if you knew there was an apartment at METS Middle School, but there is, which is really right inside of the door that is getting kind of cleared out. We'll have it painted and upgraded with some nice, more comfortable furniture where hopefully it can be an area that parents feel comfortable waiting for a meeting without having to be visible in the office, sitting in those chairs, and or teachers being able to meet with a parent in a more comfortable environment rather than the classroom. So we're really looking at using the parent center as a way to welcome parents to the building, giving them a place that they can maybe call home for a half hour, 45 minutes. So we're designing that as we go. Parents feeling informed about school, I think the new survey data will help us to be able to really look at that that piece of information in a better way as we go forward too. Really isn't anything I've been able to put my finger on in the months that I've been here so far. Parent-teacher conference participation rate, really an easy way to look at doing this. So one of the things that I'm going to look to do with my staff is to have them doing some student-led conferences in the spring in particular. Over the course of the next few months, I can easily get them trained up and have some systems that we can put into place to make that happen. My experience, that totally increases parent involvement significantly when the students are engaged in that conversation and leading some of that. So I'm pretty confident we'll be able to hit that 60% mark using that kind of tool. Extracurricular participation rates, again, broken out, really looking at 50 and 60%. We're trying to do a lot of student activities, increasing the number of student activities, and that being said, that we want to have the activities be student-driven. So again, in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably be doing some big brainstorm sessions with students to get them to really talk to us about what they would like to do after school, and then looking for some sponsorships to allow those. So this could be short-term as well as long-term kinds of activities as we go through the year. And business partnerships, don't have a baseline number there, but I'm really looking at 20. I think that's pretty reasonable. And deploying the many MET staff to go out and make those has already kind of begun for them. And so looking at professional development for blended learning, I'm looking at the 70% mark, similar to Kara. And we just put that down to one goal then, didn't we? Okay. All right.
Are there any questions on this? so far?
Am I going back there?
Ms. Purdy?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I would just very much like to applaud you on so much of what you've said, because you actually voiced a lot of what I've been thinking. So number one, I don't think it's a gaudy goal. I think it's a great goal.
Thank you.
It's one of the things that I've worked hard, and I'm grateful that both of my children, they're now out of school and an empty nester, have told me, Mom and Dad, we're glad you really, really challenged us to try, because you never know what you can do until you try. That is a huge life lesson, and if you don't reach your goal, you learn how resilient you are, which is a huge life lesson. So that is absolutely stupendous, and I thank you for that, because one of the things that I hate going through this, because as Dave Lyons so correctly said, we still have a ways to go, and every time we look at these balanced scorecards, I always think about when I was in college, and I worked my way through school teaching basketball players how to read. Sometimes those basketball players were juniors and seniors in college when I was a freshman and a sophomore. I never, ever, ever want to have a child coming out of Manassas City schools like that. And so by setting goals like this, I think you're helping set the high school up for never having a student come out of our high school that can't read. So I thank you for that. I also applaud your student-led ideas. As most people here know, and a lot of people watching on television, I did not have my children in the public schools for their entire public education. We had our children in private school for a long time, and we almost always had somewhere between about 85 to 95% parent participation, because all of the PTA meetings, all of the after-school activities, somewhere, some child was running something, and they are going to drag parents no matter what. And so I think that's really terrific. The other thing that I really want to applaud you about is the student-driven activities. When both of my kids were in Manassas City Public Schools, and they did participate in activities where the teacher sponsors actually gave those children free rein to come up with ideas and to figure out how to organize. The kids ate it up, absolutely loved it, and they walked away telling us, you know what, I learned so much because my teacher didn't do it for me. They gave me ideas for how to go forward, and they didn't let me go too far afield where I was going to go over a cliff, but they remember those activities. They remember the trust that the teachers put into them. So I really, really thank you for your leadership, for taking this on. I know you're new to METS, and so I'm absolutely convinced we're going to see really good things happen this year. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Guarantee you.
I've got a question on SOL pass advanced rates. 2014-15, our goal was 25. We had 18.
On the scorecard here?
On the scorecard, right. And next year, our target is 9. Is there a reason for that?
I'm gonna...
It should be 21, or it should be 25, I'm sorry.
Right here?
We'll have to correct that.
The 9 needs to be, okay. I just didn't want to lower our expectations.
No.
Once we get somewhere, let's keep going that direction.
That'll be correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can you help me go back? So the next slide, I think, is the kind of celebrations, and if Mr. Lyons gets there. So I've spoken to some of these. So again, celebrations. Actually, what's not on the scorecard is we had a 100% pass rate on our VGLAs last year. So the team at Metz Middle School, actually both new folks, just really owned that, and I'm kind of really going to be looking to delegate and help them get a 100% pass rate there as well this year and grow with that. Areas of improvement that I'm really looking at, so again, reading, some of the things in reading, when I get to the goals here coming up, I'll talk to you about what's happening a little bit right now. Writing remains a significant weakness, which again is kind of consistent, I think, within kind of Mayfield Metz. It's something that we really need to be looking at more. Our ESOL population, our level 3, 4 kids don't always, are kind of flat, as Mr. Lyons would say. So again, something, looking to really look at student discipline and school climate overall and student engagement. So those are just some areas to kind of let you know that I've seen in my couple of months now. So these are my goals. When I tried, so there are 3 goals, but they're very encompassing, as you will see within them. So number 1 really speaks to literacy. So students immersing themselves in an environment that values, encourages reading and writing as a daily behavior as successful citizens, evidenced by a minimum pass rate of 85%. So staff have had this goal for really about 3 weeks and have had time to really talk about it and digest it in their department meetings. Again, their initial reaction was a little frightened and anxious, but I give them all the credit in the world because they really did have approached it with some significant grit and are really making plans to make this happen. So some of what's already in place, book studies. So the English department is doing a book study with the book Book Whisperer by Nonalyn Miller. Great book. Also, so especially for the viewing audience, it's going to be required homework for all Met students to be reading 30 minutes a night. So every night, 30 minutes. Staff were given notice on Friday by me that this Friday there will be an audit. They all need to have a book in hand when I come around Friday. So this coming Friday, I'm literally going to be going class to class, and those students who don't have a book are coming with me to the library to get a book. So bottom line, and this was one of the things I noticed when I visited in the spring, is just not every kid has a book that they're reading, and that needs to change, like as of this week. So it's going to be an expectation that students are reading. The more you read, the better you are. Second goal, each student and staff member at Metz Middle School will contribute to an environment of academic excellence as evidenced by minimum pass rate of 85% science, math, social studies, and a 50% reduction of disciplinary referrals from the previous school year. So keeping our students in class, engaged in class, is going to allow us to really get that much closer to reaching that 85% goal. And some things that we've done already today, the staff worked with me on the concept of restorative practices, restorative justice practices. We're going to be adopting them kind of school-wide for in-school detention, our after-school detention, and our out-of-school suspension framework. We'll look at using restorative practices. So they had a nice hour overview, accepted all of that feedback really well. I even opened it for questions and comments and got only positives. So they're kind of excited about moving in that direction of restorative practices. And the last one, Metz Middle School staff meet or exceed a 97% attendance rate for the year. Part of what's already started here is really developing a wellness committee and charging that group to come up with a wellness plan. So looking at kind of a map over the course of the year of how we make sure we keep our staff healthy and feeling good. So both health and wellness, decreasing stress, those kind of things. So as we look at a school year, stress waxes and wanes naturally. So doing some strategic things to make sure that staff are feeling good and are continuing to come to work in those more difficult months of the school year is one of the initiatives kind of happening there. All right, is there another slide? I don't think so.
That's it.
That's it.
Any more questions? Comments? Your first presentation was very well done.
Thank you.
First presentation to us. I'm sure it's not your first one. If it's out of college, it might be.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. She ignored you.
And I believe we're moving on to our action agenda.
Yes, one of the requirements for Mayfield, because it is their second year of accredited with warning, is that they have to have a school improvement plan, and the state is now requiring that the school board approve the school improvement plan. So we're going to share with you what the plan is about, and then ask that the board approve this.
Thank you.
Ms. Mills.
Haven't you been up here once already?
Good evening again. I get a two-part
All
presentation
right.
tonight. I'm back up here this evening seeking your approval of the Mayfield School Improvement Plan. This is part of the requirement by the Virginia Department of Education for schools that were accredited with Warning Year 1 for the 2014-2015 school year. Okay, so we're going to go into the 4 different goals in this plan, and what I'd like to explain before we go into the goals is kind of the link between the data that we just discussed, the balanced scorecard, and the development of these goals. In meeting with the school improvement team, we decided on 4 goals that were all academic in nature, because we realized that student success.
Ms. Mills, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Everyone is looking on their tablets for the presentation, and it's only on the board. It was not uploaded into this into the format.
So I'm going to stop looking at this?
Yes.
I don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah, it's okay. We're gonna, yes.
I apologize, we're still trying to learn this, so just figure you can't find it.
Actually, you can forward through it and get to the grid, but here, it's just right here in front of us.
Great, and I'll highlight some of the parts of these things. So we decided on 4 academic goals based on student achievement because we realize that student success is our end goal. And you'll see in some of the strategies and the development of the discussion of this plan is that everything falls under student success. So we certainly discuss things like our staff attendance rate. We discuss things like our blended learning and our professional development opportunities for our teachers. We discuss things like enhancing our counseling program to be sure that our students are ready to learn every day and they feel comfortable in their learning environment. We discussed literacy and embedding that across the curriculum. We discussed our positive behavior intervention and support system because we know that the more time the students are out of the classroom, the more time they're not learning. So all of those things are encompassed in all of these goals, with our end goal being success for all students in all content areas. That being said, we'll start with goal 1, and I'll highlight a few of our the way we kind of break down under this. Goal 1 and goal 2 are both linked to our reading pass rate, and in the school improvement plan, this is a 5-year goal. So the goals that we just discussed under the achievement data were our goals just for this school year. But in writing the school improvement plan, we are writing with an end date of June 2020. So these are 5-year goals. So our first goal is that by June of 2020, that we will be at a pass rate of at least 90% in reading. Underneath that, we break that down into how are we going to get there. So some of the strategies that we talked about, and you'll see this is kind of continued language across all content areas, are reviewing our data sources and having our teachers talk more and collaborate more about how the students are doing. But that doesn't exclude the students. At this level, our students should take part in those data discussions. Our students should start to own their learning, know where they are, and work with their teachers to set realistic goals with their teachers and their parents. We also talked about targeted small group instruction and differentiation for all students, and that's where we're going to have an increased focus on cross-curricular connections, writing across the content area, and increased rigor in the form of higher order thinking. And that carries down into the next one as well. So you'll see as we broke down the goal, we have our action strategies and interventions. Our timelines are all for this year, because even though this is a 5-year goal, we start right now and our timeline is this year. And then you'll see some of our estimated costs and funding, our people responsible, and our criteria and evidence for success. One other thing to highlight on the slides about literacy is that we are going to do a book study for professional development for our teachers this year so they can continue their learning, and that will be in our focus areas of the differentiated targeted small group instruction. Goal 2 is also in our reading, and we chose to focus on our Gap Group 1 subgroup, and they will attain a pass rate of at least 85%. So we'd be looking at a large amount of growth within 5 years. Many of the strategies also carry over into this. Some of the increased ones for the strategies under this goal are the use of multiple modalities in the classroom, increased use of visuals, hands-on activities, and giving students multiple opportunities to grasp a concept. We also are focusing on intervention and acceleration. As I said, for all students, we'll do that through our Bobcat block, which is a little throwback to the high school Eagle block, and we'll be targeting all students at their need and either accelerating them further or giving them the intervention that is needed to be successful in their class through a preview-review model. Okay, our third goal is in science, and we'll be looking at by June of 2020, in 5 years, that we will be at a pass rate in science of at least 90%. For science, we have some of the similar trends that we saw in reading. We're going to have a focus on increased rigor in the classroom and really focus on the academic vocabulary, because if we're not able to build background knowledge for our kids, they're not going to be able to learn at the level that we're pushing them to learn. Our students come to us with a variety of different backgrounds, and it's up to us to build some of the background knowledge for them through academic vocabulary and increased higher level thinking skills. We will also continue to focus on small group instruction within the content area, which will also include differentiated instruction, and this is a key area to target writing through the content area. We also have a strategy under this one of regular data meetings. As in all the content areas, the teachers will collaborate more, collaborate with the students and the parents to look at student progress and to monitor how they're doing throughout the year. One thing we also discussed under this goal and across literacy in general is Ms. Buckheit and I were talking about the reading every night and the mandatory reading and getting students really hooked into what they're reading and engaged in what they're reading. So one of our strategies this year that we're going to implement is, you guys know I like broadcasting, so we are going to have a book talk every Friday on our broadcast, and we're going to have students highlight the books that they're reading and start to get really excited about what they're reading. We're going to base it around themes and build that into an early morning every Friday thing that students can look forward to in talking about what they're doing and what they're reading. Goal 4 is now in our math. There we go, goal 4. So we're looking at the June of 2020 that we're going to focus on our math pass advance rate. And what we chose to say here is that our math pass advance rate will improve at a rate of 20% every year. So what we're doing there is we're not putting a ceiling on it. We're not going to say that we want to be at least this pass rate. There's a lot of room for us to go up in our pass advance rate. So by saying we want to increase 20% every year, it's going to be a larger and larger chunk, hopefully every year as we get a larger and larger number. So we want to keep pushing that advance rate higher. Some of the similar strategies that we saw in science, increasing the rigor, the higher order thinking, the academic vocabulary, and the building of background knowledge. Writing is a great focus in math. There's a great opportunity for math teachers to incorporate some literacy in their teaching through writing in the content area and through the practice of literacy in multi-step word problems. And again, the regular data meetings where teachers will begin to discuss freely the strengths and weaknesses of their students, the strengths and weaknesses of their instruction, and be able to link those things together to further drive their instruction on a regular basis. And all of these things, as you'll see in the criteria for success in the evidence, all of these things will be evidenced by our assessments throughout the year, and we'll be progress monitoring that throughout the year, and our criteria will come from feedback and monitoring throughout the year. And that is it in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Anyone?
I do.
Ms. Brody?
Okay. I really, really like that you're focusing on writing in math and science. Boy, there's nothing more than writing about cause and effect that's going to get you to learn science. So I really, really applaud that. With your broadcast, when you talked about the book club, now is it going to be the students doing broadcasting?
Oh yeah, I'm not that much of a ham. I'm not going to take it over. The students will.
No, I got to tell you, I am so glad to hear that. My daughter did broadcasting, and my goodness, that child was really, really shy. It was, getting blood from a turnip to get her to go on stage doing, choir and all that stuff. But once she did broadcast, she has got such presence in the public, and public speaking doesn't faze her in the least, and she attributes it to being part of the broadcast program when they had it, when she was at Metz and Osborne for the 1 year that she had it. So I really, really am glad to see you bring that back, because I think you're going to find that that's going to also not only help with the reading, but it's going to help with the critical thinking as well as giving them confidence because they have presence. So I really want to give you kudos for putting those into your strategies, because I think those are winners.
Do that now.
Mr. Chair, I move that the school board of the city of Manassas approve the Mayfield Intermediate School Improvement Plan as required by Virginia Department of Education, VDOE, as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Sebeski, second by Mr. Williams. We will continue discussion. Ms. Kiefer?
I'll be very brief because I know it's been a long night for everybody here. I just wanted to say that when you think about school improvement plans, it has a very negative connotation. And I can say by sitting up here tonight and listening to all of you, and seeing the collaboration between the Mayfield and Metz principal that's going on, the idea of students leading things, we should be thinking about this as a school invigoration plan. It is exciting. It is, it gives you goosebumps to think about where we're going to go with these kids. So stay on course. It's only going upward, and keep making us all so very excited. So thank you for your hard work to everybody here, and who's not here as well.
Yeah, if you're not here, we're not real. Anybody else? Yeah, I agree with her. And all of these goals and stuff are great. We just need to implement it and keep moving forward like we have been. You know, keep that momentum going, everybody, and onward and upward. We have a motion by Mrs. Sebeski, second by Mr. Williams, that the school board of the city of Manassas approve the Mayfield Intermediate School Improvement Plan as required by the Virginia Department of Education as presented. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Ma'am?
I move for adjournment.
Motion by Mrs. Sebeski, second by Mr. Williams. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you all.